I want to buy a copy of Bone Storm. Here's 99 cents.
Allow me to summarize the proposed transaction. You wish to purchase Bone Storm for 99 cents. Net profit to me, negative $59. Oh, please take my $59. I don't want it. It's yours.
All right, Perch. So I think a lot of people have been saying that only, all DC and Marvel produce nowadays are FGW garbage. There's no good stories going out there. And while I do agree, it's a little bit harder to kind of dig through and find those gems waiting to be discovered. There are definitely some classic comic books out there. And I just want to talk to you today about some comics that we think will still be in print in 20 years from now. The new classics. One from DC, one from Marvel, one from the Indies. Now, I'm going to start out with DC. I think this one's a no-brainer. Batman is the bell cow of DC Comics. I think Sean Gordon Murphy's White Knight will absolutely still be in printing. It's an amazing, fresh take on the character, but it's got one thing that I don't think we've ever truly gotten from a classic Batman story, and it has probably the best car chase scenes in Batman comic history.
Yes, it does. No, it's a great comic. The art is clean and it kind of everlasting. It's doing well in the secondary market today. So, and it's we could pick up one book, get a self-contained story. That's the stuff that's going to fare well in in graphic novels and that kind of thing. If you think 20 years from now, it's still going to be in print. It's going to be stuff like that that's not tied to any kind of continuity. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I think White Knight is a shoe-in for that. And I think if they play their cards right as he's doing these volumes, if they just plan them and publish them correctly, it will become like manga, where you've got just multiple volumes on the shelf, and you can get done with one, and you can go to number 2. You can just pull it off the shelf and go. I did notice DC starting to publish on the spine 1 and 2 for White Knight and Curse of the White Knight. That's clever. They need to keep up with that.
Yeah, so you can put them in the stack, and you know exactly where to start.
Yep, and that's going to be great for people coming into a bookstore in 20 years, or or shopping with the robot on Amazon, whatever happens.
Absolutely. So do you have a DC story that you think in 20 years is still going to be relevant to the industry, will still be in print, that's been created in the last 5 years?
Well, I think that I think Three Jokers likely will, in the same reason that Killing Joke will. I think it's again a standalone story. It's Batman, same reasoning. And I think it will be, it's likely to have parts that adapted in some kind of movie. So I think that one's going to be there. And I think Deceased has a good chance of it as well for a lot of the same reasons. Independent story, standalone, easy to pick up. I think that one is another one that's gonna live the test of time.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about Deceased Dead Planet this weekend on the channel. We're going to wrap up the story arc. Very excited to talk about that because I really enjoyed the last issue.
Yeah.
Is it time to move on to Marvel?
Let's do Marvel. Yeah.
All right. So there's some obvious picks. House of X, Powers of 10, X-Men, big X-Men stories always seem to be in vogue. There's been some pretty cool Spider-Man stories. Even the Red Goblin thing that Dan Slott did, I think will have an evergreen factor, maybe even last remains. But I'm going to go a little bit off the board. Al Ewing, Joe Bennett's Immortal Hulk. Now, it does have a caveat. You can't just jump into Immortal Hulk and get everything that's going on. You kind of have to know what had happened prior. It's not exactly the Hulk that just Joe Schmuckatelli knows. It's multiple personalities Hulk. Obviously, most people are used to the Hulk smash Bruce Banner from the TV shows and the movies. But I do think that art from Joe Bennett is so amazing, and the story itself, at least for the first, 15 issues, maybe upwards of 20, is really classic horror comic storytelling. And I think it will stand the test of time, and it's something that's going to be sitting up in a large bookstore right next to Planet Hulk.
Yeah, there's a good chance of it. I do think it. And the biggest reason is it fits a different genre for them. And so as they put books out, it allows them to play in another space they don't normally play in. And that's going to help. So I think there's a good chance for that. I do think it's continuing going. And we have heard it's wrapping up at some point, likely in later 2021. But yeah, I think, yeah, at issue 50, I think it's likely that one will there's a good chance it will. I'll throw one back at you that I think is an equal curveball, and I can 100% guarantee the people in the comments will disagree. Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Panther, the original run he did with Wakanda, I suspect will still be in print 20 years from now. And I say that for this reason.
I know why.
Yeah, well, they're pushing it out very aggressively right now. Again, it fits a genre they want to play in. They're going to continue to dive into Wakanda with the movies and all the rest of that stuff. And his run deprioritized the Black Panther and prioritized Wakanda. So it's going to really fit with what they're doing with the films. And I think Marvel wants the quote unquote legitimacy of having Ta-Nehisi Coates' name up there with them. They like that association, and it allows them to kind of, stave off any sense of, we just hire white guys here. It allows them to kind of say, no, we've got a diverse audience and writing cast. So that's my feeling. I suspect that book they'll continue to be pushing that out 20 years from now.
It's interesting. If you want to know like the origins of Black Panther from the movie, you kind of got to go back to Christopher Priest's run. But if you want to know the origins of Wakanda from the movie and the visuals, you got to go to that Ta-Nehisi Coates Black Panther run, and specifically the Brian Stelfreeze art, which is absolutely phenomenal. And every comic I think we're going to talk about in here doesn't only have a compelling story. They've all got like world-class art. That's probably maybe the best illustrated Black Panther story ever. It's right up there.
It's up there. It's a very pretty book, and Stelfreeze, I think, deserves all the credit for it. And it is for that reason. It's because, we're going to see a Wakanda attractions in the theme parks, and you're going to see a lot of that. It's going to be based off of those designs and that world and everything else. And so they're going to do that. I mean, Black Panther's clearly a character they're going to invest in. The mythology around Black Panther. They are retiring Black Panther as a character. They're not going to recast him from what they've said, but after the passing of Chadwick Boseman. But the world of Wakanda is absolutely in their future.
100%. All right, let's get into the indies. This one was really hard because there's so much to choose from. Just the gamut, every genre is out there, and I have my personal favorites. Like I think, These Savage Shores. Don't know that one's going to be sitting on a shelf in 20 years as a newly printed book, but I do think Jonathan Hickman is one of the very best comic writers of his era, if not the best comic writer. I know people probably think I'm going with East of West, but I think his magnus opus is actually the Black Monday Murders, which is just a fantastic world building, a sort of lore, but it's also got this really cool mystery element, but it kind of ties into like the world economy and how it's kind of it's being manipulated by the secret organization. There's a lot of really cool stuff he built in there that even ties into a lot of themes from Christianity, that he certainly gathered from the Bible and things like that. I think that is going to end up being an evergreen tale. That kind of story is still going to be relevant in 20 years, I believe. And I think that's probably his best work. Obviously, it's not quite complete. I guess the artist got sick at the end, and they're going to release the last volume as a trade. But I think it's just a phenomenal book.
Yeah, it is. It is a good book. Hickman needs a different agent or somebody, because he's got a bunch of these titles out there that are relatively unknown when you consider a writer of his profile, who I think boasts the highest sales in 2019 of just putting stuff together. It's kind of remarkable that he doesn't, a lot of his older work isn't being collected and put out there. And so I think that has to change at some point. He is a big name in the comic industry, and there's money to be made by just, getting his old stuff back out into print. So I think you're right. I do think Black Monday Murders, some of these books, definitely good stories. And I think they'll have a second life.
All right. So now there's obviously some chalk here. I think Saga will still be collected.
Yes.
The Walking Dead. Did you go chalk, or did you go for something a little more intriguing?
No, it's with the indies, it's tough because they have an extra hurdle to get over in order to get books distributed. And in a lot of cases, so if you're playing safe money, Saga, Walking Dead, maybe Wicked the Divine, those books are going to be around. And then, but if you go further off, you start to get into some of the, then you get out of comics entirely, and anything Raina Telgemeier is still going to be on the shelves and that kind of stuff. But I don't have any sure bets. It's sad because there's a lot, Cantu and the Kill Lock and a lot of those books, which I absolutely love. I have a hard time believing that they'll be out there. But the one probably likely, and maybe it will take another 20 years for it to get done, is The Last Ronin. is likely to be another one that sticks as a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle story that gets reprinted and put out there, both for the interest and the characters and the darker take. I think that one's probably a likely pick.
Yeah, it's like going with the Dark Knight Returns for Batman. It's a different feel for Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles are always going to be there. It's an evergreen product that kids are going to be still going to know in 20 years. And by that time, the kids that are watching Turtles now are going to be discovering The Last Ronin. That is absolutely a terrific pick, even though it hasn't finished. We've only got one issue. But well, I do think The Last Ronin will definitely be on there.
Yeah, the kids will be discovering it because they'll be getting issue 4 20 years from now, and it will all work out. By that point, IDW will have sold the rights to it to whatever company in their bankruptcy fire sale. So hopefully they'll do good things by the trade.
That is one of the weird things that they have to deal with is, how long do the contracts go? I know sometimes you'll see these books printed by different companies as the creators move around.
Yeah.
Obviously, TMNT is a little different because of Nickelodeon.
That's right. So they have a built-in kind of solid through point for some of these things, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with that book. A lot of these properties, things like the Umbrella Academy, which probably also has a second life due to the Netflix show and some of these things. The other person we didn't talk about, and it will all depend on if it's successful or not, is Mark Miller's, his universe over at Netflix. So Jupiter's Legacy, stuff like that. If that show is successful, then those trades will be in print forever.
Absolutely. Mark Miller, one of the more interesting creators. That guy can go to some really dark places.
Yes, he can.
All right, so there you got it. It's not all doom and gloom. There are absolutely great stories out there, and there are new classics being written every single year. Those are just a handful of the new classics that Perch and I think will still be on shelves in 20 years, and people will still be reading them as freshly printed comic stories. Perch, is there anything else that you wanted to say about new classics before we kind of wrap this up?
No, I just appreciate talking about it. It's fun to think about the classics, so I look forward to seeing those on shelves when I'm old.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.